All right, guys, we are live. It's official. It's Wednesday, so you're back here with us on Rain or Stop Live. We are so happy and thrilled to have Mr. Steve Ross with us today, talking about a pretty interesting topic that really affects all of us here in Raining. And before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and have my co host, Miss Chelsea Sutton, join and open us up.
Thank you, Shelly. Great to be here with you guys at Rainer Stop. Really excited to be here with Steve, who will be introducing in just a second. For a reminder, for those of you guys joining us, we're going to be doing these talks every single week. The idea here is we want to bring real conversations about real topics that matter to you to the audience. We want to bring you and make you a part of the conversation, allow for an open conversation to talk about things that are happening in your life and happening in the industry that often aren't discussed. To do that, today we're going to talk to Steve Ross. Steve, you're a good friend of mine, a great colleague. I've had a lot of fun with working with you in the industry, and I'm honored to introduce you to our Rainer Stop community. Steve, I want to talk a little bit about your background. You, as a radio broadcasting host for many years, bring that to the reining industry, which we'll talk more about in a second. Steve is a sales broker. If you're not familiar, he brokers Western Performance Horses right here, beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona, at the Four Peaks Ranch. As a broker, you're bringing integrity and honesty to the buying and selling process, which I appreciate so much and is a big part of what we're going to talk about today. Steve has spent years as a reining horse trainer and is a veteran NRHA judge for over 20 years. If you haven't seen Steve in the chair, you might have heard his voice as the NRHA commentator for the Derby Futurity. You'll see him doing back gate and exit interviews at the NRBC and Cactus Classic, and I'm sure you've seen him in the judge's chair over the years. Steve is also a professional commentator for the NRHA Majors on the Cowboy Channel, the first 24-hour channel covering Western horse sports and the Western lifestyle, which is a really, really great thing coming to reining. Appreciate all of your contribution to this sport. Appreciate you being here. And I'm going to let Shelly take over the conversation. You guys, I will be behind the camera moderating. We want to get your questions in to Steve. This is an open conversation. Steve will be answering questions for us here for the next 20 or 30 minutes. So if you're joining us live, be sure to comment in your questions on what buying and selling looks like. Shelly, I'll let you take it over.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chelsea. All right. I'm going to get this out of my hand so we are good to go.
First of all, thanks for having me, Shelly.
Awesome.
Chelsea, thanks for all the kind words. And I'm excited to talk about Meghan Markle's unfortunate comments to Oprah Winfrey.
What a great way to start, Steve. You know, it's already very surreal for me, right? I feel like it should be reversed.
Right.
You know, coming out of the pen and being able to talk to you has always been such a fun thing to kind of relive the ride, whether it was one you wanted to relive or maybe not.
Right.
You always made it fun and enjoyable for us. So.
Well, I appreciate that. It's something I really enjoy, getting riders' reactions right after they come out of the arena at a big horse show. It's fun. I think it's something that technology's allowed people to see that maybe they never got to see before. You know, how do people really feel right after marking a 224 or winning the non-pro futurity in your case? And I think it's great that we get to see that now. I'm glad I'm somehow stumbled into being a small part of it, but it's fun.
You make it fun. So having you here is just so great, and especially in this topic that we're going to talk about today, and your role specifically. And I definitely want to dive into that. But before we do, Chelsea had just briefly kind of top-lined your background.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, before we even get into the horse side of things, kind of share a little bit about your radio side and then how you kind of got into sales. That wasn't first, it was car sales, right? First car sales, radio sales too, and then into the horse industry. So I think it all paints a big picture, and all of those previous experiences lend to what you do now and what we do now as a community.
I've had a really diverse background. You know, I started, always ridden horses since I was a little boy. My first job was for a horse trainer when I was 13, and I worked for horse trainers so I was 30 years old. That's all I did. I feel like that was kind of a good, solid 17-year apprenticeship. And after that, I started thinking, well, maybe there's something else I could do, and I always had an interest in radio. I was living in Weatherford, Texas at the time, and I knew the station manager there. Well, I met him after I went and introduced myself, and in a week I was hosting the morning show, and I kind of led from one thing to another, and I found out if you're going to make a career in radio, there's no money in being on air, the money is in sales. That dovetailed into meeting an owner of a Ford Lincoln Mercury dealership that just purchased it. He offered me the job being general sales manager of that big store, and I said, I don't know anything about cars or the car business. And he said, I know, but you're a people person, and I don't want car people. I want somebody that the public's going to be comfortable dealing with, and they know is going to give them a lot of value. And sent me to a lot of great training through Ford, and just the experiences I had there in dealing with the volume of sales on a day-to-day basis and dealing with the public and listening to what they said. And my paradigm kind of shifted in that I had a negative feeling about sales, and salesmen, and they're really bad, and they're trying to take your money, and they manipulate you and word trap you. And believe me, there are some of those. There are plenty of those. But the other side of it is a good salesperson, and I'd like to think I am, that may be a little presumptuous, but he listens to what his clients want, and he's able to meet that need by first listening to what they want rather than just shoehorn something into them that he wants to sell. And we found in what's really built our business here in Scottsdale is we listen to our clients, and we're able to get them the horse that they want, that kind of meets their emotional goals for what they want to get out of a horse. And for some people, that's different. Some to compete, some to just have companionship. When that happens, they have all these great emotions and experiences, and they tend to tell their friends because most people just want that experience. That's what a horse offers you. So we've kind of built our business around that philosophy. We don't hard sell anybody. I like people to buy a horse, not to be sold a horse. So we try to provide information. And what I really like to think is, a lot of times when you're in a buying situation, Shelley, you're at the mercy of the person who's selling you that because they have such an advantage in knowledge and experience in that field. And while we do have that, what we try to do is, let's take all this knowledge experience that I have and my crew has here, and let's use that to help you make a better buying decision. Because we say no to people a lot of times. Hey, this horse isn't for you. I know he's beautiful, and I know you think he's going to be great, but you're going to have a bad experience if you do that. Ultimately, they always wind up thanking us when we're able to match them up with the right horse. So that's in a nutshell what we do. I know I got a little wordy there, but
I love it. Hey, you're on a roll. And you could see it, and I think that's a big part. And you know what? I can relate so much to it, Steve, just because, my background is in sales as well, sales and marketing, primarily in the medical industry. But I think the biggest thing that I got from what you just said right there was the relationships and listening. I mean, that's the thing. It's not about, selling this, making it work, when in your heart, it might not be the best one. And if you really listen and uncover what your buyer is looking for, you can make those matches. And
here's always my goal. This is my litmus test. When I sell somebody a horse, my goal is that if I don't see that person for another year, when I see them a year later, I want them to run up to me excited and thank me. Then you've done your job. It's not just get the money now, because you can tell people things, you can do things, you can sell a horse one time to anybody. If you're dishonest or misrepresent the horse, you can do that if you want to, but this is all I want to do. This is all I've really ever done. I want to keep doing it, so I'm going to make it easy on myself and feel good about what I've sold.
Well, I just appreciate you sharing so much of that. And I think that's important, right, to the history and to the business that you do. And, I actually want to kind of get into that question a little bit more is like, you were a trainer, right? You have all this other experience outside horses. How did you come to recognize this role was needed?
Well, there were a couple things happened. One, I figured out probably not that good a trainer. Want to stay in this racket, I might need to think of some other ways to make a living. Gosh. And the other part of it is, not to sell myself short, but to trainers out there, the commitment that is required to succeed in this sport is something maybe I just wasn't willing to make. In terms of the hours and the time and the travel and the stress that goes into it. If you don't know, it is a tough way to make an easy living. And I want a little more 8-to-5 life. And this was something I saw that, if we were located here in Scottsdale where it's easy for people to get to, I want the same horse, like a nice horse I can go show and have fun on, that's safe. The list goes on. And I'm like, if we had that horse,
I could sell it.
We could sell it all the time, and we've proven that. That's all we've done. We just try to provide nice, safe reining horses at all levels. Some of them are ranch riders, some of them are reiners. We'll get an odd cow horse every now and then, but the thing we like to say they all have in common is, they're just user-friendly horses that people are going to go have good experiences on, and that varies so much. We sold an incredible reining horse last week for a pretty good price tag to a guy that just wanted to go rope on it, but he wanted the best rope horse.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
you know, the reining market continues to be pressured by the secondary markets because our horses are so well trained. The ones that sometimes we don't think have a lot of value have a ton of value outside our world.
You know, let's actually dive into that a little bit more. You know, it's very interesting. I've heard you say this before, and we've talked about it, is the different markets. So today, guys, we are talking about to price or not to price your sale or to price or not to price your sale horses, and really how to price your sale horses. And that's what we're going to dive into right now a little bit deeper. And let's talk about markets and the different markets. And, you know, the way I kind of think about it, and I obviously want to hear your expertise on it, is when you look at, we've got, you know, rookie riders, green as grass, youth, level 4 open, non-pro, level 1. There's so many different areas. That's just within reining.
Right.
But like you just mentioned, there's also, you know, a reiner is so well trained, it can go do all these other different events for the owner. So let's talk about markets.
And I, first of all, I have a little exercise I like to take people through on why reining horses, before we talk about price, and I'm going to give you specific numbers, because that's what people want to know. But I can tell you the reining horse is still by far and away the best value. And Shelley, you're in the business, you know this. The average yearling reining horse, go to the sales, not me saying it, you're going to spend $15,000 on it. And you're going to send it to a trainer for a minimum of 2 years before you have something resembling a finished product. Wouldn't you agree? That's ready to go horse show and have fun on. That's going to cost you anywhere from $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 per month. That's figuring in vet bills and
shoeing and
training and shoeing and hauling and seasoning and everything. So when you're able to buy that horse for $20,000, $25,000, that's great value because you've bought a great prospect. By the time it's fully trained, you can pick what color you want. You can pick if its stride suits your back or whatever it is. So, you know, we like to talk about not what a horse is worth, but where it fits in the market. And there's certain portions of the market where the demand is very high.
Yep.
Okay. For us, it's the weekend non-pro horse, we call it.
Okay.
A mare or gelding that someone can take home, maybe stays at the trainers, maybe they get tune-ups at the shows, maybe they ride with somebody. But it'll go do lower level reining on the weekend level. Here again, in the $20,000 to $30,000 range, we can sell all those we can get in the barn. They don't last longer than a week if we know they're solid.
Sound, healthy.
Yeah, and now
trained.
That's more than it used to be. But our sport has grown so fast. Judged a horse show in Cloverdale, Indiana this weekend, 674 runs in 4 days of just reining. Okay, so the demand is there, and while I thought we were oversupplying our industry a few years ago, we're not. There's still more of a demand for trained reining horses than what our industry is able to produce.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's really good. Now, as far as the market, so you mentioned kind of the weekend warrior horse, maybe in training, out of training. Let's talk about someone that's like maybe wants to be an owner, right?
Sure.
Maybe not a rider, but they're like, hey, I really want to be the owner here. I want to go watch my horse perform with a trainer. How would you kind of gauge or set expectations for pricing in that scenario?
Well, it just depends on your budget. I always say the best value is a 3-year-old reining horse that quote unquote isn't going to quite make it, and that's why I deal with only the biggest barns, because you got basically a race car that's about 85% built. You know, maybe it's not good enough to win the Indy 500, but it's your weekend track out here in Dubuque. You got a dominant race car.
Yeah.
So a lot of times that horse doesn't fit into that trainer's barn anymore, and they have a reason that horse needs to go away, and you're able to buy down that investment that they've already made. You know, if it's a well-bred, pretty prospect that vets well, they paid a lot of money for it, and they've had it in a top barn, so they paid a lot in training in it, and you're going to spend a whole lot less than they did, and you're going to wind up with a horse. Just take it home and finish it a lot. The reason they're a value is because a lot of people won't buy a 3-year-old before it's all the way finished because they know they're buying a training bill, or they know they're maybe not capable of going ahead and finishing that horse out to a level where it's able to go show. So if you can do that, you can save yourself a lot of money and get a nice horse.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's a really important thing that we always have to keep in mind. Depending upon the level that you want to compete at or what you want to do, your goals are. There's horses out there that maybe it didn't make this level or this expectation for this owner. Doesn't mean it's a bad horse. We just need to find the right
Well, it's
partner.
all about fit. I always tell people the easiest thing about my job is I don't have to give you a sales pitch because we're going to let the horse tell us. People call me and describe the type of the horse they want. If I have a horse that I think fits that criteria, we'll set up an appointment. They come out and they're asking me all these questions. I'm like, look, here's what we're going to do. You're going to get on. What do you want to do? Ranch riding and reining? Go out there and do some ranch riding and reining, and that horse is going to tell us quickly whether or not this is a good matchup. Now, yeah, you're going to get better as you get to know them better, but if you'll just listen and just watch and be a little bit objective, and that's why I tell people, if it's for your 6-year-old daughter, please don't bring her, because she's not going to be objective, and you're going to have a mess on your hands.
If it's all braided and beautiful, it's yours. It's going home with you. Yeah.
You know, but the horse will always tell you. You know, they make it obvious if you're going to be compatible or not. Has nothing to do with whether you're a good rider, whether it's a good or bad horse. It's just I've seen it over and over again. We've had several horses we've sold 2 or 3 times. Sold it to somebody, they just didn't quite match.
Yeah, yeah.
Brought it back, found a new home for them. That rider is exactly what they're looking for, and everybody's happy. It's all a matchup. It's almost like a marriage. You know, for most people, they own one horse. You know, if it's a show horse, especially, they'll own one horse, and they develop a pretty long-lasting relationship. People don't usually buy them just to resell them. You know, there's a handful of people that do that, but for the most people, it's a long-term thing. So I say the most important decision is get the right horse.
Is get the right horse, and I think that comes. My idea is that comes from setting expectations as a buyer, as a seller. Before we jump into that, I just want to jump over to Chelsea. Any questions that are coming through just yet?
Nope, we've got quite a few people tuning in. A lot from Texas, Kansas, Central U.S. Nope,
Awesome. Well, guys.
What about Delaware?
Haven't seen any yet. Your network's not showing up there.
Delaware, we need you. We need you. You know what
I did just get a question, actually.
All right.
What's the capital of Delaware?
Shelley, do you know
Can you guys keep him in line? Because I'm not doing a good job.
You might need to repeat this because I'm not sure how well my audio is coming through, Shelley. But what are the major differences in price spreads? What makes the difference between a $35,000 horse better than a $25,000 horse when it seems equal in pedigree, training, talent, color, soundness, etc.?
All right, let me repeat that question. Thank you so much for the question. And I do want to encourage all of those that are watching. This is interactive. We want you to pull as much information and education from this as possible. So please, please, please reach out to us with those questions. So going back to that question, we had a viewer ask, what is the major difference in a price from $25,000 to $35,000 when all things seem to be about equal, right? Pedigree, training, age, all of that. How would you, or why would there be that separation?
Well, there are a couple factors. One, it can be that one person may just be 10,000 more proud of the same horse than the next guy. And that's one thing about the horse business. It's a lot like art. It's all perceived value. But I can tell you from a business standpoint, from a company that probably retail sells more reining horses or as many as anyone in the country, you know, here again, it's how much of a premium does that horse have? Is he a basic 70 reining horse? Okay, that's where you start. Now, on top of that, is he exceptionally pretty? You know, he works, you know, is he really easy to operate? Because when that happens, the base of buyers broadens.
Yep.
You know, you don't have to have a Mandy McCutcheon or a horse. The simpler that horse is to ride, the more people are able to ride and compete on him, the more value he's going to have. So it's really a number of factors, including, you know, is he Derby eligible? Is he exceptionally pretty? Is this a mare that's going to be a great breeding mare someday? You know, all those factors go into it. And then again, it can be that just one person's more urgent to sell and he'll take $25,000. But what we've always found and what we tell our consigners that send us horses is, you know, we're going to tell you the number where the horse is going to sell, because if you overprice a horse, the market will tell you, because the horse won't sell.
Yep.
And it's usually not selling because you've overshot your price point a little bit, and people can buy other horses of similar value for less money than what you're asking for yours, so they just don't buy it.
I think that's a really, I mean, gosh, I love that. I love that response and all the gold that kind of came through it. I mean, just for me personally, because I do breed as well and have some always to sell. It's so hard because it's emotion, and we'll get into it. But I really think that, you know, when you look at all these things, they may be the same. What about talent? How many people can ride that? There are still differentiating factors between the two horses that may on paper look very, very similar, but right, pretty Is it an easy keeper? Are we able to, have anybody get on it, or does it need a certain level of rider? I mean, those are definitely kind of goes back to supply and demand,
Well,
right?
You brought up a great point. I mean to interrupt you
No,
there, but
jump in.
You're very typical in our industry that you're a small breeder. You raise some really nice horses, and when it comes time to pricing them, you're going to be completely unemotional and objective. Am I right? No.
Don't ask Carrie or Daniel about that
You were there when they
question.
were born. You've got pictures on your refrigerator, on your phone.
Oh my God, my kids are involved.
So when it's time to sell them, no, you're not objective, because the reason the horse business is because it's an emotional business.
100% agree.
So that's why sometimes maybe you need to get, as you do, some professional help.
Yep.
Just to kind of advise you on what the market will actually bear on this particular horse, not what it's worth to you emotionally, because those are two different things.
Oh my gosh, yeah, all of mine are, priceless. No, so I think that is so important, the emotional side of it. And I remember I had, when I was a youth kid, so this was a long time ago, I remember who I was riding with was said, obviously it costs the same amount of money to show a good one as it does a bad one.
Right.
So I think setting those
Good
expectations and thinking about that is really important. And, this is something that I talked about with Rainer Stop. When we first launched Rainer Stop, it's a whole new evolution now, turning into education for you, our community. But it was about creating that transparency and helping connect buyers and sellers online, right? And one of the things is when I taught about pricing, just from my background, my professional background, is you have to look at things like, okay, if you want $10,000 more for your horse and it might take 6 more months, you also have to factor in, I'm paying 6 more months of board and training, 6 more months of vet, 6 more months of this.
Exactly.
Is it better to take less and sell it fast? Or, if you really want to hold it, you just have to understand that. So I think that's a great way to look at it, too, when you're pricing.
There is, and that's something I always I have that conversation with just about every one of my clients. Let me have this horse for a while, kind of see what he is, do my evaluation on it, and I'm going to tell you what it'll sell for right now.
Like right now.
As soon as we advertise it, this one will have action. It'll be gone the next 2 or 3 days. If that's not going to be enough, then we're looking at this much more time to get him there. And honestly, I don't know that he's going to get there.
Yep.
Or maybe it's a young one, and with 6 months more training, you're going to have this much more in it, provided it doesn't get injured. Are we going to get you up to 30,000 on him? I don't know. But people need to hear that, because with horses, the meter is always running, and the best way to stop it is to sell it. Even if you think it's for a little less, I always say we'll win at the feed store.
Yeah, yep.
Another question.
Oh, yeah. Jump on in.
So I still haven't seen Delaware. We've got South Georgia, Alberta, Ocala is tuning in.
Love it.
Gord Robinson said Steve sold a few of his horses, done a great job. So
Canada in the house. Thanks,
Canada
Gord.
is in the house.
Love it.
We have a question come in from Don Poole. How much is sales commission, and can you share about other expenses?
Sure. We charge 10%. We charge cost plus 10%, just to kind of pull the curtain back from what we do here.
And Steve's given his experience here. These are definitely conversations if you're working with another professional. This is an opportunity, to have those conversations with the professional that you are working with. But sorry to interrupt you that time. Got you back.
No, we're fine.
Please share what you do here, which I think is pretty similar, but you do it a little unique.
Well, there's there's kind of an industry standard that's accepted of a 10% commission to a professional that facilitates a horse sale. I'll call it that way. Since we provide a specific service here, we have a sales contract that we provide the owners. It puts all our costs in writing, and then we charge 10% sales commission. I'll also disclose that many times, just like in a real estate deal, there's a professional involved on the other end that accompanies the buyer. We split that commission with them. I don't charge the owner anymore. It's just that now they make 5% and I make 5%. I don't know why anybody thinks that's secretive. That's just how our business works. If I sold houses out here in the foothills, 6%, I get half, the listing agent gets half.
Yep.
That's how our business works, and I think we provide tremendous amount of value for that service.
Yeah. And
I can't speak for anybody else, but that's how we do it, and ours is all in writing, and our entire process is fully transparent. So there's never any guesswork about where the money came from or how much there was or anything like that and what we're making, because you're going to know it up front and you're going to know it on the back end.
Great. Thanks for that. And, Chelsea did read off a question from a viewer. I just wanted to reiterate the question was talking about the commission and what is normal. So thank you so much for answering that. And, that actually kind of leads me into the next one that I alluded to a little bit earlier is expectations. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about expectations if you are selling a horse for somebody and expectations if you're working with a buyer. Mm-hmm. How does that differ? How is it similar?
I think they're both the same in that your job as an agent, as an intermediary between those two is to ask the right questions. Mm-hmm. What's most important to you? I have a lot of clients that say it's not the number. I want this horse to go to a good home. And by a good home, this is what I mean. I don't want it to go back in training. This horse is 8 years old. He served me well. If you can find me somebody that will take this horse and ride it in the country and just give it a good life, that means more to me than maximizing the cash amount. Yeah. With somebody buying a horse, I like to get real specific about what do you want this horse to do. Reining's too broad. Okay. Do you want to show on the weekend shows? Do you want to go win the NRBC? Do you want to learn how to do the sport? Do you want to ultimately use it for breeding? If I ask the right questions, they'll tell me exactly what kind of horse they have. And I'll say, well, what's your budget? Well, I'd like to stay between $2,000 and $3,000. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not going to happen. It's an unrealistic budget for one of these horses. But they need to hear that on the front end. And I just saved everybody a whole lot of time that they would have inquired about their horse they couldn't afford. So same with buying a race car or any other hobby item, a boat. The more information you have, the less mistakes you make, the more you ultimately save.
Well, and you really do find the right horse for that buyer, right? I mean, but it's taking the time to do all that discovery and really understand what they're looking for. I think that's huge for expectations. Now, as far as, we did talk about market expectations, commissions. I love that question came across. Let's say that you're a buyer and you're looking, to get into reining for the first time. And they don't have Steve Ross in their neighborhood to go work with. Could you give, someone that's getting started, maybe some tidbits, maybe some questions, maybe some things to look out for or pitfalls that you've heard through people that you've worked with that you wish they came to you sooner or, could help someone have a really successful experience? I mean, ultimately this industry is growing and we want it to continue to grow. So how do we help kind of get these people going?
The problem is people that don't know, they don't know. And that's not just somebody coming into horses. If I decide tomorrow I want to start playing golf and the first thing I need is a golf cart, and I stumbled into an unscrupulous golf cart dealer, probably going to buy the wrong golf cart and pay too much for it. Mm-hmm. So it's not unique to the horse business. But if you're just getting started, I know this sounds cliche, I know you've heard it before, but you got to get some professional help. You got to find somebody that can help you make this decision, because if you're just getting started, this is not a criticism of you personally, you don't know what you're looking at. You could very well buy a really good reining horse that's very accomplished, but the worst reining horse for you, mm-hmm. for where you're just getting started. So it's a specific horse you need. And I know what everybody's thinking, and I'm going to go ahead and address that. Well, I went to a trainer and he sold me this 2-year-old because he needed the money. Okay, well, he shouldn't have done that, or she shouldn't have done that. This all depends on you getting with the right professional that has your interests at heart and not just their best interest. You need somebody that will look after you. Who that person is, you're going to have to be a good enough judge of character to find that, but they're everywhere. There's a lot of good people in this business that'll help you get where you want to be, make deals with you, really help you, because they know once you taste success, you'll want to go on with it and buy another horse someday.
Yeah.
Specifically, I want to chime in here. We had a question come in that is right along these lines. Can you give us tips for a rookie or green rider that's looking to step up into the next horse?
I'm going to just repeat the question, make sure our audience hears it, can we look at the steps to find that step-up horse? So how would you help coach someone maybe that's in a green as grass and looking for that first kind of non-pro horse that they want to get to?
Sure, a horse you can be more competitive, start marking 72s, 73s on. Really the only way you're going to do it, now you search where you search, but you got to sit on those horses and you got to try them. Because you're talking about competing at a really high level. Now, if you're going to NRHA ratings, you're competing at one of the highest level equine sports there is, that's more rider intensive than anything else. No insult to cutting, but on a trained cutting horse, you kind of hang on and win a lot of money. you know, on a great old non-pro horse. In the reining, you got a lot of jobs to do to get even a well-schooled horse through the pattern. So fits everything. You know, a horse that's been marking 73s every weekend for one person may not fit you at all.
Yep.
You know, it's all a custom fit. So if you've decided I want to move from the rookie level on up into the regular non-pro, there are a lot of horses that are capable of doing that, but you're looking for a horse for you. So I'd say that the most important thing is you go ride it and see, can I plus half turns on this? You know, try to run through your mind, if I top this horse off just right, where would I mark? 72 and a half, 73, and be honest with yourself, you know. If you can't turn into 0, don't expect to go to the horse shows and mark 73s. And they'll tell you in practice, but you got to go ride them to do that. Have somebody there, whether it's a friend or a pro, that can kind of say, you know, I think you can mark enough on that horse that it's worth spending the money to go to the next level. But don't buy one because it has a pretty white face, because you'll win nothing. Maybe you will, but...
Come on, as a judge, a
You know,
white
if
face walks in and you're like,
but
oh,
if
plus
your
half.
criteria is competing. It's a little bit of my pet peeve. If your criteria is I want a horse I can go be competitive on, I want a step up horse, and I hear that from people, that's hard to find. Okay, it's tougher still when you start ordering them in color.
Yep.
Just find the horse first. They're so hard to find.
Because as a judge, looking at it from a judge's perspective, it doesn't really matter what color it is.
No, it doesn't.
At all.
Each maneuver's judged individually. Each penalty is applied as they occur. Eye appeal's great. It doesn't hurt. You know, I'd never buy an ugly horse ever. I don't want them on the property. But from a judging perspective, you know, it's not critical. But you don't see Andrea Fapani and Sean Flaherty and Casey Deary and Cole Price riding ugly horses either.
Nope. Big part. Any other questions at this point, Chelsea?
A few more. Do you mind if I take the mic
Yeah.
and take over for a minute?
Yeah, love it.
I'm going to squeeze in close to you, Shelly,
Come
because
on in.
our camera angle's tight here. We do have a few more questions coming in, and for the sake of time, we're going to take probably 1 or 2 more. So if you have any more questions and you're tuning in with us live, be sure to comment in. We'll take 1 or 2 more questions for Steve before we close up. I know he's got a few more horses in the barn to tend to today. I also want to remind you guys, we will be doing these talks every single week, and soon they are no longer going to be live. We are creating a private group where you can subscribe to be a part of that and have conversations like this every single week. We're going to be talking to Steve many times. There are many topics that are certainly hot topics around buying and selling, and I know that there's some questions we're not going to be able to get to today. We will be having Steve back on, but we want you guys to be a part of that community. In order to do that, the best way right now is to drop your email at reinerstop.com. There is a section right above the header section where you can drop your email in. We're going to let you know when that subscription opens up. Our founding members opening will be happening here in the next few days, so we want to make sure you're a part of that. These conversations are so great and so important in the industry. I appreciate you being here with us, Steve. I'm going to hand the microphone back. Next question coming in. Can you share with us about contracted time frame? Do you have a contracted time frame for a sale with a client, or is this an open-ended time frame until the sale is made?
We like to say we're normally able to do our job in 30 days. Somebody doesn't send us a horse for us to keep for a year. They want it sold immediately. That's not realistic most of the time, because it takes a little time for us to get the horse adjusted, make sure we understand it and we've thoroughly checked it out. But I'll tell somebody up front what we're looking at, and it's always, you can sell a horse as fast as you want if you drop the price low enough. You know, if your target price is $25,000, I'll tell them, you know, we're 60 days away from this horse being $25,000. We can get $17,500 for it today and save ourselves all this effort. Which would you prefer?
Yep.
And I do what the customer asks me to do, but I try to always give them realistic expectations, because everybody wants the most they can possibly get for their horse. I get that. People don't just bring me horses and say, just get rid of him. You know, they say, can you get me $150,000? Well, I'd love to, you know, but he's 27. And so you just have to, I've found people really appreciate it when you tell them what their horse will actually sell for. Not that I have a corner on the market on knowledge, but we do have a lot of experience to sell a lot of horses here, so we have a pretty good feel for where a horse will move and where they'll sit.
Yep. Well, you know what? I think right now, just on time, you guys, Steve, this has been so great. I love the interaction that we got from everybody here. You know, if you would, please drop your favorite emoji on what you maybe resembles what you got from today, right? maybe a heart, maybe a thumbs up. Give us something. Let us know that you enjoyed this. And Steve, I just got to tell you, today, this has been very near and dear to my heart because I have the sales background and just being a part of this industry. I mean, Chelsea and I want to connect, such knowledgeable experts such as yourself with our community, and we're so happy to have you here. Now, I will say, Chelsea did say we did get some more questions. We'll do our best to actually get responses to those questions, but we do need to let Steve get back to work here before it does get too hot. It's starting to warm up here in Scottsdale. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm actually going to turn it back over to Chelsea just to close us out for the day. I do want to remind you what she just said. If you want to be first to know on our email list when we are having our founding members launch, and there is benefits to being a founding member, go ahead, go over to reinerstop.com. Right below the header photo, there is a green box where you can click on that, enter in. All we need is your email address. There's no commitment at this time, but you will be first to know when we launch. Chelsea, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Beautiful. Thank you again, Steve. Such an honor to be with you. I know I'll be seeing you in a few days at the NRBC. For those of you guys that'll be joining us there, make sure to say hello and let us know that you're stopping in. As Shelly mentioned, drop your email at RainerStop. If you guys don't want to take the time to go over to the website, just send us a direct message. We'll be sure to check our Facebook DMs and Instagram DMs. We will get your email and make sure that you are notified. But in the next few days, we will be opening up that subscription to make sure that we can have these weekly conversations about topics that actually matter. Along those same lines, I do want to ask you guys for topics that you care about. As we're scheduling out our next few weeks of
Can
experts.
you get a pickpocket on? Like they used to have on the Johnny Carson show, that guy that would steal people's watches and stuff. I'd like that.
Would that be fun?
How to pickpocket, at the horse show or at the convenience store? Or
Just
just
the horse shows, maybe. Yeah.
feel like there's
probably get some good
good
loot
stuff there. We want to know about the experts you want to hear from. Maybe not the pickpocketers, but I appreciate it. We want to know about the topics that you want to hear about, the experts that you want to hear from. So you can drop those in the comments here on this video. You can drop us a direct message or a comment, or reach out to Shelly or myself personally. Our information is all over the Rainer Stop website, so easy to reach out to us there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you again, Steve, for spending some time with us this morning and sharing some insight into the industry. We'll see you guys next week, next Wednesday.
Thanks, guys.